Welcome to Let's Talk About It. Here we go! Say yeah! Woohoo! Oh, that's a great line. That is a great line.
Almost fucking killed me! You're welcome!
Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About It. And I know I haven't done it for a week. I haven't done this series for a week, and there's a reason for that. There's a very good reason for that. So Cinemacon was happening last week, and I decided, instead of me just doing it day by day, I wanted to do an overview of the entire event. Go over every panel, what every studio presented, and just kind of talk about it. And because I felt like if we just kind of did it one by one, it just wouldn't be as good, because there was some good panels, some not so good panels, but there was a lot of stuff, a lot of news was happening, a lot of news. So I felt like just doing just one video talking about each studio presentation would be better. So let's start off with our first panel, and that panel was Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers has been having a great year. They got Dune 2, Godzilla x Kong, new Empire in theaters. They just got the Office X of Barbie, and people were excited to see what was coming up. So the presentation started with them presenting Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, which I am very excited to see. Initially when they first announced Furiosa, I was not excited. But then I saw that the two trailers came out, and I thought it was amazing. And they showed about, they showed a few, they showed a lot of footage. They showed kind of like how the movie would be broken up, kind of like a book. They had Chapter 1 being Her Odyssey Begins, Chapter 2, A Warrior Awakens, and Chapter 3, Ride into Vengeance. So it's kind of like you have the beginning, middle, and plot of her story, and it's played over years. It's not just 1 year of her life. No, this is played over Furiosa's entire life, which could be really, really cool to see. And George Miller was there. George Miller, getting up there in age. Making it out to Cinemacon, and he gets really things to say about Anya Taylor-Joy. He said if the apocalypse came, she's one of the first people I'd want to hang out with. So I think that was it for Mad Max Furiosa, yeah. And like I said, people were really excited seeing the footage. People said the footage looked amazing. So I cannot wait for it to come out. And that was the first thing they showed for Warner Brothers. Let's go over to the second thing they showed. And that was from M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, The Watchers. And so if you guys are what's The Watchers? Maybe about a month ago, they dropped this trailer where I think it's with Dakota Fanning, and there's 3 people in this room, and there's a glass that the outside can see, but they can't see outside. And it was very much didn't give us what the trailer was about, but this is from the Shyamalan family, so it's going to be scary as hell. So they debuted the second trailer for it there, and they did not release it online, unfortunately. The movie does come out June 14th, and they just showed another trailer for it, and they kind of that's all they kind of talked about with it, that we know of at Cinemacon. Alright, now I did not think they'd do this. I said in my update, my overview of CinemaCon that I did a week ago that I didn't think they talked about any DC stuff. Well, they did. Peter Safran was there, but James Gunn was not because he's filming Superman right now. And he showed the logo for Superman Legacy, the official logo of what the suit will be. It's of course we know it's the Kingdom Come symbol, which is really, really cool. But they talk about another movie, a documentary from DC Studios, and that was Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. Now coming out of this, I had heard that they're making this documentary. I didn't know it was a theater release. I thought it was gonna be go up on their streaming service Max. So they debuted the trailer, and people have said it's very, very heartwarming, very, very sad. Like, people were crying watching this trailer, and it got me very intrigued. I'm like, okay, I am excited to see this trailer when it does come out. And, I think, like, this documentary, people are saying it could possibly be a big hit, especially for the Oscar season comes around for Best Documentary. But yeah, that's basically old DC Studios presenting. Like I said, I didn't think they were going to come out and announce, hey, we're making a Wonder Woman Legends of Themyscira movie or whatever. No, this was, because the thing about Cinemacon is, I don't know if people understand, like, Cinemacon is to kind of, you're pitching the movies you want to put in the theater. So the theater owners are there to see what movies they want to be played in their theater. And it's not an announcement event. It's here's what's coming up, and here's some footage that no one's ever seen. So that's what this is about. And, that's, I think, the really cool thing about CinemaCon, getting closer looks at movies coming out this year. And maybe also a few announcements along the way. Now, then they brought Kevin Costner out on stage. Kevin Costner, absolute Hollywood legend. And they came out to talk about Horizon and American Saga, Part 1 and 2. Now, I remember watching this trailer, and I thought the trailer looked pretty good. I thought it looked pretty good. It did look great. It looked good. It looked like, to me, it looked like, okay, this is definitely Kevin Costner. This is kind of like what he does. Westerns, Yellowstone. Kind of like, okay, that's Kevin Costner for me. The really cool thing about the model that this is taking is they have Part 1 coming out, I believe, in June, and then the second one coming out in August. You don't really have a Part 1 and Part 2 of a film series come out so close to each other. And, it's kind of like a first time that a studio is really doing this, and really movies are doing this. And he talked about, how he had been trying to get this movie made from, like, 1988 to 2003 and failing, and, like, he wrote, like, so many other scripts for this, and then he finally got it made this year. And, Kevin Costner, I know there's been a lot of drama with him lately with Yellowstone, but some of the work he's done as a director has been absolutely amazing. And, personally, I was already in to see American Saga, because it looked great, and it looked like we haven't had, I believe, a Western, I feel like, in forever, No one's really making Westerns anymore. If they are, they haven't really been great. I look at, like, The Hateful Eight. We had just, like, not a lot of good Westerns. And maybe this brings back the Western genre to Hollywood. So very excited to see this when it comes out in June. And then they moved on to some movies that we haven't really heard a lot about. But movies that I am very excited to see. And that first one was Bong Joon-ho's next movie after his Best Picture Parasite win, Mickey 17 with Robert Pattinson. This is based on a book called Mickey 7, and he basically explained he changed the name because he killed Robert Pattinson more times than 7. But, the trailer, when I saw this version, because I thought this was going to be more like a sci-fi horror movie when I saw, like, the poster, like, the image of Robert Pattinson, like, kind of laying down. But, people said it was funny. It was really, really funny. And, of course, they did not release the trailer online, because this movie does not come out until 2025. Which, I was like, oh, dang, I really wish I could have seen this trailer, because, I think Robert Pattinson, a lot of people, when Batman was coming, like, oh, it's the guy who was in Twilight. I think Robert Pattinson has kind of gotten rid of the, like, Twilight version of himself, where it's like, hey, he's not just the guy who's in Twilight. He's been in movies like The Lighthouse, The Batman. He is the Batman, which that is probably, other than The Dark Knight, is my favorite Batman movie. Like, I love that Batman movie. And now he's doing Mickey 17. So he's really, becoming one of those, like, actors, like, getting out of the mold of, like, being remembered for this. And also, people really said, like, it's possible Pattinson might get an Oscar nom for the footage they saw, But that's just a trailer, a trailer, just kind of showing the best parts of the movie. And, it might not be as good as we think, but I am super excited to see this. I've been excited since they announced this movie. And I guess that's all they talked about Mickey 17. Alright, so now we're going to go on to another Shyamalan. The main Shyamalan, M. Night Shyamalan, took the stage to talk about his new movie. And it is called Trap. And, I never even heard Shyamalan was making another movie, which, he's always making horror movies. He's one of the best horror directors, I think, of our generation. He makes some very good horror, but he also makes some really bad horror sometimes. So this movie, kind of described Shyamalan, showed the trailer, and it's starring Josh Hartnett, who just came off Oppenheimer, which he was really good in. And basically, it is a dad takes his daughter to see this pop star that her daughter absolutely loves. So they go and take his daughter there, and then he's like, "Hey, honey, I'm gonna go use the bathroom." So he goes uses the bathroom, and then he sees a bunch of cops outside and a bunch of, he sees a concession lady. He goes to the concession. He's like, "Hey, what's going on?" They're like, "Oh, well, we're looking for this serial killer. He's here. They did the concert so they could lure him to this event." He's like, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh." And you think like, "Oh my gosh, he's got to get to his daughter. His daughter's in trouble." He goes to the bathroom, and he pulls out his phone, and it is revealed in the trailer that he is the serial killer. And then the trailer ends. It's like, oh. And people said, like, it looks twisty and fun, and like every Shyamalan films. And it's going to have probably a major twist in there, and it comes out August 9th. This movie, that sounded really interesting to me. Really interesting, especially, like, with today's day and age, with concerts and all that. But, Josh Hartnett, I'd have to see the trailer first, but that was Trap. Now, we go on, next what they talked about was Beetlejuice. They brought basically everyone on stage. Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, Willem Dafoe, Catherine O'Hara, Justin Theroux, and Monica Bellucci all rise on stage. And they talked about, Beetlejuice, and how excited they were for the film. And, Michael Keaton said, like, this was, like, the most fun he's ever had on a movie in his life. Michael Keaton's been in a lot of movies, so that's really something coming from him. So, and people think, and they said, like, they tried to not do everything CGI. They want to do a lot of things practical, which, that's Tim Burton for you. He loves doing the practical, prosthetics, the production design, he wants to make everything seem real. And, I think that's really good to throw your actors into the world and throw the audience into the world. And people are saying, like, possibly this movie could be contended for an Oscar. And that's looking a lot from the Warner Brothers. Like they're saying, like, a lot of these movies could be nominated for an Oscar. But, that was Beetlejuice. Of course, they showed some more footage for it. Some extended footage for the film. And then they moved on to the thing people were most excited for. Joker Folie et Deux, a.k.a. Joker 2. This movie, they really weren't going to make Joker 2. Because they saw it as kind of a one-off, but Joker, for some reason, made $1 billion at the box office. The highest grossing R-rated film of all time. So, like, we gotta make a second one. And, of course, they have Joaquin Phoenix returning as Arthur Fleck, Joker. But they also have Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn. And, of course, they released a trailer at Cinemacon and the trailer online. And you can go see the reaction to the trailer on my channel. I'll put a card up here, if you guys want to go check it out. But the trailer, was amazing. I could talk about the trailer here, but if you really want to hear my thoughts, go watch my reaction. So the trailer I thought was amazing. Really, really cool trailer, and I'm definitely more excited to see this one than the first one, because the first one I did not go see because I wasn't really interested in it. It didn't really look appealing to me. This looks great, and so the film comes out on October 4th. And that was all we got for Joker. Then Warner Brothers kind of, this is towards the end of Warner Brothers panel, they kind of went to go talk about what else was going on in the studio in the coming years. Kind of stuff they present next year at Cinemacon. So, of course, they got a recording from Jack Black, who was on set of the Minecraft movie, which he said it would be a new kind of blockbuster if you got the joke right there. And, they just started shooting it, so they really didn't have any footage. And then they went to Then also Ian McGregor and Anne Hathaway came out, and they're on set of a new movie called Flowervale Street. Don't really know anything about that movie. I don't even remember Ian McGregor and Hathaway being in the movie. Then Maggie Gyllenhaal from set came out to talk about her movie The Bride, which we saw images for this past week. And then it went to Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan, who are collaborating on their fifth project together. And it's a new film by Ryan Coogler, which is kind of like a southern vampire movie, which sounds really, really cool. And then it went to David Cornswright and Rachel Bronson for the set of Superman, just saying, "Hey, we're here." Talk about Superman. It's like, "Hey, yeah, there's been a lot of capes involved this week," and like they talked about that. And then then the cast of the new Final Destination movie came out, and that was about it for Warner Brothers. That's all they talked about. I think it was a very solid panel. Like, it wasn't anything like, oh my gosh. It was very, very solid. All right, now let's move on to the next panel, which happened the following day, which was Lionsgate. Lionsgate had a pretty good few movies they had to talk about. Not a whole lot, not as much as Warner Brothers, but they had a few movies to talk about. And so they started off talking about, the franchises they had, like John Wick, Hunger Games, and Saw. And, they mentioned, quickly about the Highlander film and Naruto film, which they talked about how Naruto's going to be a cinematic universe for them, which I'm very excited for Naruto. One of the most beloved animes, in the world, and I personally love Naruto. And then they also talked about, Margot Robbie and her company for tackling a Monopoly movie. I'm like, interesting idea. And then Blumhouse is doing a new Blair Witch movie. I think maybe like a reboot. But those are things they just glanced over. I was hoping they talked about Naruto. I'm glad they kind of just confirmed Naruto's happening, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, at least Naruto's happening. Now we move on to what they talked about first. They talked about Guy Ritchie. Guy Ritchie's got his new movie, The Ministry of Ungodly Warfare, coming out, and then, which I'm very excited to see this week. Very, very excited to see it. I've heard so-so things about it, but then they started talking about the next movie Ritchie's got lined up, and that is called In the Gray, which is starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Henry Cavill, and Eliza Gonzalez, which, I love Guy Ritchie films. I think he's just he's such an enjoyable director to watch, and he just does the films he wants to do. Maybe they're not huge films, maybe they're not super, super great films, but he makes a lot of movies that I enjoy. He's very, very good at action. That's why I love him, and he's a fantastic storyteller. And he kind of talked about I think he talked about the film it's like these. I can't remember what the exact plot of In the Gray was, but it's like you're saying a Guy Ritchie film. There's it's action. There's a big twist in it, and that's kind of what they talked about. And then Cavill, they brought Henry Cavill out with him as well. He said he's working on Highlander, and he says that this movie's sword work will be like nothing you've ever seen, which I believe, because you got Chad Gillespie, who kind of invented the word gun fu with his John Wick franchise and kind of made that one a huge franchise for Lionsgate. And now they're tackling Highlander, which I cannot wait to see Highlander. It's gonna be, I think it's gonna be awesome. I think it's gonna be another great franchise for them. Then they came out and started talking about The Strangers Chapter 1. And it's kind of a prequel to the older Strangers movie that came out. To be quite honest, I didn't really care for this. I watched the trailer for The Strangers. It wasn't really intriguing to me at all. It's not really a horror I'm really into. But, they showed it. Not really a huge thing. And then they brought Halle Berry on stage to talk about her next movie, Never Let Go. And it's kind of like an apocalyptic survival family story in the plans of Bird Box and A Quiet Place. where it's like the mom and her two sons live in this cabin out in the woods, and away from everything. And she says like they can't go outside at certain times of the day because something will get them, and then the boys start to suspect the mother might be lying. But we probably know that she's not, and something is going to come get them. But no trailer online, they just talked about it. And let's see what they. And next they talked about Borderlands. Borderlands has been on an interesting journey, if I have to say so. So they brought Eli Roth, the director, and Ariana Greenblatt, who's been having a tremendous success this past year with Barbie and also appearing in the Ahsoka series. But they took a stage to talk about Borderlands. And Borderlands has been on an interesting journey because I feel like this movie's been being made for the last 4 years. Because I remember when they announced it at I think it was E3 or IGN Fest in the summer, and then it was like, oh, nothing. And now we're finally getting the movie. And, Eli Roth, he just came off the success of Thanksgiving, a really great horror movie, and people, kind of said, the movie looks like they showed some extended footage and said it's a cross between Mad Max and Guardians of the Galaxy, which, when I watched the trailer for it, I'm like, oh, yeah. I got the sense for that. And, Ariana Greenblatt said she's never been happier filming the movie of Borderlands, and they really think this movie is going to be a success for them. And they said, it's just fun being on set. This is just having a fun time. You got Jamie Lee Curtis, Kate Blanchett. You got two great comedians, and Jack Black and Kevin Hart also in the film. Jack Black is more frequently not on set. He's just recording the voice, really. But, you got a great and really interesting cast for this film. All right. And then what they talked about next was The Crow. Yes, The Crow, which has had an interesting journey. They've been trying to get this reboot of The Crow made for years. They wanted to do a Crow 2, but then they finally settled on a story. They got director Rupert Sanders to direct, and they got Bill Skarsgård to play the main character as The Crow. We reacted to the trailer. I really thought the trailer was really, really cool. It's kind of like this Dark Horse I always said it was like a supernatural John Wick, in a way, which seemed really, really cool. And I think they showed some more footage for it, and just kind of thought hey, we moved the release date from this date to August. It's not going to be out in August, so August is going to be a pretty big month for Lionsgate with Borderlands and The Crow now coming out. And you can't wait to see what everyone thinks when the movie premieres. And then they also showed some movies of upcoming movies. And that they first talked about The Killer's Game, starring Dave Bautista. And he stars alongside Paul Clemente from Guardians and Terry Crews. And it's about an assassin that's given a diagnosis, and he doesn't want to die alone, so he kind of does this thing where I don't know. It's about an assassin, Dave Bautista, really cool to me seeing. And then we get another announcement, which is a new movie from Mel Gibson called Flight Risk, starring Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg sent a little video message teasing that it's going to be kind of like a new person who's playing. I believe he's playing the villain in the movie, and he's bald. And, Topher Grace is also in the film. Eddie Brock from the Spider-Man movies, and also from that 70s show. So he will, that's what's movie. And it sounds, for me, when I heard about it, it sounded a lot like Nicolas Cage's Con Air. And then they showed a trailer for a new film called Shadow Force, starring Kerry Washington. And it's about spies on the run. Which I'm like, okay, yeah. And you also got Divine Joy Randolph, who just coming out for our Oscar win in that as well. I think that might have been it. I feel like they talked. Oh yes, they talked about something else. And they talked about Ballerina, the new John Wick spin-off movie. And, it's starring Ana de Armas. It was pushed back to June 6, 2025, so this is not coming out for at least another year. But, they said they showed a little, sneak peek at it, a little trailer for it. It was showing off Norman Reedus. John Wick himself, Keanu Reeves, will appear in the film. And that's kind of all they talked about it. Since it's not going to be around 2025, they'll probably talk about it more next Cinemacon. And then they wrapped up their presentation talking about Anton Fuqua's new movie, Michael, the Michael Jackson biopic. And they talked about the film, and this movie has been very highly anticipated. The story of Michael Jackson is one that's really interesting, but also kind of dark in a way. A lot of things. And so Jafar Jackson, Michael's nephew, will be playing Michael Jackson in the film, which looks really, really cool. And I think they said there was over like 50 plus songs in the film, which is just mind blowing to me, like how much music in this film. And and I really hope they don't go the route they did with Bob Marley, because I thought Bob Marley I was excited for, but they kind of did it where it's just focused on one point in his life, which I like the biopics who go like overview of entire lives. My favorite biopic movie is, of course, Elvis. I think that movie is absolutely amazing. But yeah, that's all they really talked about with Lionsgate. Those were the films. I like Warner Brothers. I think a very solid presentation. Very, very solid. And now, in the later of the day, this is the next panel they talked about. And that panel was Universal Pictures and Focus Features. And there was one movie in particular I was very, very excited for them to talk about. So, before the panel, they really brought Wicked front and center. They had the costumes, they had a new poster out in front of the big hall they went to go share everything. So Wicked was the big thing they're excited for. And of course they went out to talk about, the success of Oppenheimer, how much that was success for the studio. And of course this Universal wasn't really big on franchise and IP during this presentation. There were a few things they talked about. They talked about Despicable Me 4, showed some more footage, showed some footage of Joey King's character in the film, and that's really good. They're hoping this one will be 4 will be another hit, just like Minions Rise of Gru was. But yeah, that's really all they talked about, Despicable Me. Then they went into Twisters. They brought the cast on stage, Glenn Powell, Anthony Ramos, I think it's Daisy Edgar Jones is in the film as well. And very excited for Twisters. I'm very excited. I think the one with Bill Paxton, is I remember watching that. The movie is very, very a fun movie. Of course, Steven Spielberg is a producer on this movie, and I think they showed an extended look at the trailer, and they said Glenn Powell's really becoming into his own. He's found success out of the Top Gun franchise. If that's Anyone But You, and now Twisters. So this will arrive in July. It's kind of like a joint movie with Universal and Warner Brothers. And then they brought Blumhouse on stage to talk about horror. And they announced that they're making a Five Nights at Freddy's sequel with its success at the box office this year. Megan 2 is also happening. They showed some more stuff with the Wolfman, which is coming, I believe, in 2025. And then they showed a trailer off for a new movie called Speak No Evil, I think, with James McAvoy in it, and they released a trailer online. If you guys want to go watch that, you can go watch it. Then they went into talking about some of their indie films, because they had the rights. Focus Features got the rights to the Bike Riders. Then they went on to talk about Robert Eggers' new film, Nosferatu. It was shown that it has great cinematography. People were glued to their seats watching it. It stars Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, and Willem Dafoe. And they did show a trailer off it. It's very people say it's very vampire. It's a vampire movie, very, very vampire-ish. Very much like one of those classic vampire movies, that you used to see like in the 50s. Then Lupita Nyong'o took the stage to talk about the anime film The Wild Robot, which that movie looks like a legitimate Best Picture animated nominee for it, and it's looked very, very interesting, very, very cute, and I love like the animation in it. I think it's looks very, very like of the animation we get nowadays with the Spider-Verse and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animation, and people really think it's a front runner to win Best Animated Picture at the Oscars this year. And the last thing they talked about at Universal was the new Wicked film. A movie I'm very excited about, even more excited after I saw the first look trailer that we got during the Super Bowl. So they brought, like, basically everyone out on stage. They brought, of course, Ariana Grande to the stage. The director was there. John M. Cho was there. They brought, I believe, Jeff Goldblum on stage. They, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting. Why am I forgetting? Michelle Yeoh. They brought Michelle Yeoh out on stage, basically, and Cynthia Erivo out on stage, who's playing the Green Witch in the movie. And they said that they showed a lot more of the music. They showed a lot more of the film, and people are just super excited. This is the first of 2 parts. It comes out in November, and audiences really, really love seeing it. And that was it for Universal. Again, I think it was one of the. I think it was the weakest presentation that was shown because they didn't have a whole lot of films to talk about. Wicked probably was the most interesting thing, but that was about it from Universal. Now, the last day of Cinemacon was my most excited day because there was 2 panels. 2 panels to talk about this day. Paramount and Walt Disney. Let's talk about Paramount. The presentation I was probably looking forward to the most out of every studio. And the thing I've heard about Paramount is that their CEO, he's a people CEO. He comes out every year doing a bit. When it comes out this year, he was ridden in a chariot by Roman soldiers in a chariot representing they got Gladiator 2 coming out, which sounds really, really cool. And at first they kind of talked about films they have that won't really be talked about this year, but will be kind of presented next year, just kind of announcing them. So Paramount went on to talk about that they have that Damien Chazelle is doing a new movie that will come out in 2025. Damien Chazelle, director of La La Land, and he did Babylon, which was but La La Land, one of the really great. La La Land is great. So excited to see that he's still getting work. Then we have, they brought out Edgar Wright to talk about, he's doing a new version of The Running Man. It's based on a Stephen King novel, and it's starring Glenn Powell. And then they also said Ridley Scott will do another film called The Bee Gees. I don't know what that's about. We didn't really talk about it. And then they said that a new Star Trek origin film is coming from a new director. Also talked about that they are doing Star Trek 4. And then they also said they're doing a new South Park movie that will feature music from Kendrick Lamar and kind of be by the creators of the show. And that's kind of and they also talked about, another Scary Movies in the work, and then another Naked Gun. And then they went off with one of my favorite franchises, the Transformers. I'm a Transformers stan, I'm all Transformers all the time. And they said, that post-credit scene you saw at Rise of the Beast, well, it just wasn't for anything. They announced we are getting a Transformers and G.I. Joe live-action crossover film coming to theaters, I believe, in 2025. And I was so happy because I really love Transformers Rise of the Beast. I love Transformers in a whole. It's Transformers when I ever see Transformers. It's my weak spot. I can never hate on it because I love everything about Transformers. Because I grew up with the Michael Bay movies, and I grew up with a lot of the series. And I just love Transformers so much. And the big worry I have for this film, G.I. Joe in there. G.I. Joe, is a popular property. It is a popular property that, had a great show back in at the same time Transformers animated show was going on. But G.I. Joe was never translated to the box office. They did those 2 from Channing Tatum. They were subpar films, and they did Snake Eyes. And it was a total disappointment as well. So they've had 3 tries to get this G.I. Joe off the ground. and they're like, it's not working. Maybe we get some Transformers, because Transformers has had like over 7 films, some films that have crossed the $1 billion mark. And I'm really just gonna see this for the Transformers, seeing Peter Cullen be like, "I am Optimus Prime. Without sacrifice, there can be no victory." I just want to hear that Peter Cullen voice again, even if I hope he comes back for it. And that's what's like one of the big announcements. Now the other big announcement was that they will be doing an R-rated live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie based on the last Rodin comic. I never thought we'd see a day where we see an R-rated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie. But we are, and this movie, I think, could be a tremendous success for Paramount, because Last Rodin is not your typical Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles story. It's not your pizza cracking, laughing around the table Ninja Turtles. This is a dark and gritty Ninja Turtle story that deals with a lot of powerful themes. Talk about grief, about kind of being the last one of your kind. This is a movie I think will have tremendous success. I'm not going to tell you the story. I have read this comic. I have read it. It was so heartbreaking to read this comic. It is so good. I highly recommend you go read it if you haven't. But that is on the way. Then some other smaller things. They talked about the Smurfs. Brought Rihanna on stage. Don't really care about it. And then they went to go talk about the new Avatar: The Last Airbender animated film. Called Aang the Last Airbender. This takes, I believe, about 7 to 8 years after the original series ends. And they announced that Dave Bautista will be voicing the villain, and it's from the original creators. And that's kind of what they talked about. They announced it last year at Cinemacon. They just talked about Dave Bautista will be voicing the main villain. And they have a new voice for Aang as well for the film, since he's more grown up. And then they brought John Krasinski on stage. This is when they talked about the releases for this year. He talked about sent a video from London where he's trying to finish the film right now. And I believe they probably talked about the trailer. It comes out pretty soon, about a month, so they didn't want to go too much. They didn't really need to show too much footage for it because it's coming out very, very soon. Then he started talking about Quiet Place Day One, which he's not the director of. He is the writer and producer of the film. He is not directing this one. They have a new director for it. And he basically said, like, what if we did this? What if A Quiet Place started not in a quiet, but starts in the loudest city in the world, New York City? And I believe they showed some more footage of the film, brought Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn out on stage to talk about the film. And, Joseph Quinn, he's very, very mainstream now, starring in Now This. He's being Gladiator as well. He's also going to be in the new Fantastic Four movie. So that's what they went over at Quiet Place. Now, this was one of the most anticipated things I wanted them to talk about. Transformers 1. Online they released a little title card for it, which I freaked out about, super excited for that. They talked about Transformers 1. They brought out Chris Hemsworth and Brian Tyree Henry to the stage and talked about, this is kind of the origins of Optimus, Orion Pax, and Megatron, who has, another name. It's like B-17 or something. And they showed off the first trailer for it, which was supposedly getting the first trailer for that in 3 days, which I am so excited for. And people looked at it, and again, they said the animation is stellar. They said it's a lot more comedy, a lot more kid-friendly than you might think it is. But the animation looked better. They gave everyone 3D glasses to see in 3D. And people had such positive things to say about it, which is really heartwarming for me because I've been excited for this Transformers movie. I originally, when they announced it, I'm like, this could be Spider-Verse level big. I think, it's going to take, I think, Spider-Verse is very much beloved now, and I think Transformers 1 could ignite, people wanting to go back and see the Transformers movies. Because Rise of the Beast wasn't the greatest success at the box office, but it had success. It's being directed by Josh Cooley, who did Toy Story 4. And, I'm very excited to see a movie based on Cybertron about the Transformers. Not just the humans, but characters like Optimus Prime, Megatron, Bumblebee, Elita 1, about all these characters, And I'm excited to see this come to theaters. It's September 13th. Now next, Paramount teased Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And they had Jim Carrey on screen to talk about the film. And they showed the first trailer. They did not announce the voice of Shadow. The director of the film basically said he wants it to kind of be a little secret for now. And of course the movie doesn't come out till December, so there's a lot of time now before the movie is technically getting its first trailer, and we're going to see footage, and I think it's going to be a while to see who Shadow is. Recently this week, at Cinemacon, John Campion said that Hayden Christensen is not going to be the voice, but people are going to be very happy with who voices Shadow. And they showed the trailer, they saw Shadow on a bike, Robotnik, kind of looking more like the Robotnik, like the fatter Robotnik, he's got the mustache, bigger mustache, and him going to go get Shadow from the facility. And we see a fight with Shadow going against Sonic and his friends, and then they have Shadow and Sonic go against each other, and it turns into the logo we've seen online. And that's all they did for Sonic, probably because the movie does not come out for a while. They don't want to put too much information about it out into the world. Now they talked about Smile 2. I have not seen the first Smile, and now this movie does star Naomi Scott. I am surprised I hear that name because I haven't heard her name since Aladdin, which it's been a while since we heard your name, Naomi Scott, and it's kind of like she is a pop star, and then the Smile cushion transferred over to her. I think they showed a trailer for it, and that's all about it. Now they went on to talk about one of the bigger movies, which is Gladiator 2. They brought out the cast for it to come out and tease the movie. Joseph Quinn was there, Ridley Scott, Denzel Washington, Paul Mescal, Pedro Pascal, and Connie Nelson. So they said in a behind-the-scenes feature talking about how excited they are about this new story. They talked about how relevant, how extraordinary the first film was for them, bringing back, Connie Nelson for the film. A lot of new faces, a lot of big-name stars in the movie. And they showed the trailer for it. They showed, the battles. They also said the CGI was there. There's CGI. Most of it's not done because the movie still, like Sonic, pretty far away. And they showed some footage of them in battles in the Coliseum. There was something about a monkey fight. There's rhinos. Nothing about Digimon Hansu in there. He wasn't really talked about. And they think this is going to be a really big success. The CGI did not look great, people said, but the film looks like it could be good. It could be good. Now, there's going to be a while until we get this trailer, and I guess we'll just have to wait to see if they can really pull off a Gladiator 2. Ridley Scott is very missed right now. His last few films have been very much a miss, and I'm hoping he does not sour the legacy of Gladiator by doing the sequel. And that was it. That was all Paramount. Very good presentation. A lot of really, really cool announcements. And now we're going to move on to the final presentation of Cinemacon, which was Disney. Now, I thought Paramount had the best presentation at the time, and then Disney came out and shattered everyone's beliefs with their presentation. Now, this was going to be the longest presentation of Cinemacon, being over 2 hours, and they said they had 75 minutes of footage to show the audience. And they started it off with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Showed about 13 minutes of footage, 2 sequences from the film. And people said the CG, the visual effects, look amazing. It looks like it's even topped the original film's effects, which I felt like was really hard to do. Talked about how Noah O.N.T. might be the biggest highlight of the film. He's playing the new main character in the film, whose name is Noah. He's like the new kind of like Caesar main character. And this takes about 200 to 300 years after the original Planet of the Apes films. And They showed the clip of Noah's village being attacked by rival apes. Spoiler alert, and that the movie will be in theaters on May 10th. So that's where they went in with Planet of the Apes. And then they talked about kind of like a smaller movie, Young Woman in the Sea, starring Daisy Ridley. It's a limited theatrical release. And I didn't really care. I didn't really care about it. Just not really my type of movie. But people said it looked promising. I don't think it's really Oscar nominated for anything, but just people said it looked good. Then they brought Amy Poehler out on stage to talk about Inside Out 2. And I'm very excited to see Inside Out 2. I think the two trailers we've got have been very funny and very, very good. They showed the first 35 minutes of the film, and they talked about the new emotions, anxiety, envy, embarrassment, and you being kind of like the villains of the film. And I think this could be another smash hit for Pixar. Pixar, I think with Elemental kind of got some of their groove back. And, I think Inside Out 2 sounds great. And then, of course, they brought the main man on stage, Kevin Feige, to talk about Marvel. First thing they wanted to talk about was Deadpool and Wolverine. Now they kicked off Cinemacon with having a little footage of Wolverine and Deadpool saying, "Shut off your effing phones! Enjoy the presentation!" And people said it was hilarious. And then Kevin Feige talked on stage. He said the F word, which is like the first time we've ever heard it. And Kevin Feige said that popcorn buckets have been a very big topic of conversation. He said, well, Deadpool himself designed our popcorn bucket, so you could expect it might strike the same conversation as that well-known other popcorn bucket. And people are like, oh my gosh, it's going to be hilarious. But he first talked about the next year's releases, talking about the next year films, because Marvel only has that one film coming out this year, which is Deadpool and Wolverine. So this is a very X-Men heavy year for Marvel with X-Men 97 and now Deadpool and Wolverine. And he briefly mentioned Fantastic Four, how it's being filmed in IMAX, and we start shooting it in a few months, and they're very excited to see it. And then they talked about Thunderbolts as well, clarifying that for a new logo, and they had like little asterisks on the logo, and saying that this movie is going to be a very different type of Marvel movie, and saying that the asterisks will mean you will know what it means after the film releases. I'm like, okay. I was already excited for Thunderbolts, but I wonder what they got coming up. Now, next, they brought out Anthony Mackie to talk Captain America: Brave New World, a film that I have been excited and very, very worried about, because they finished filming it, and then they said this movie does not look great, so they're gonna go refilm it, and then cut a lot of things out. But then Anthony Mackie, of course, one of the most funniest guys in the Marvel Universe. I love Anthony Mackie. He's so funny. And then they showed a clip from the movie about Captain America meeting President Thaddeus Ross, played by Harrison Ford, who's taking over the role from William Hurt. They make a joke how he looks a bit different because, switching the actors and everything, kind of like what they did with Rhodey in the Iron Man movies. And they talked about, they showed another scene with Isaiah Bradley. In that original scene, they talked about how Ross wants Cap to rebuild the Avengers, which is like, okay, this is basically what we thought the movie was about, assembling a new team in Avengers. And then Isaiah Bradley's there, like I said, played by Carl Lumley, the voice of Martian Manhunter from the animated Justice League show, and how he kind of like goes for a second and attacks the president. And he is taking down Captain America, Sam Wilson, who's not a super soldier. And they basically described the film as being very, very close to the Winter Soldier and being more grounded in Marvel Universe than other films we've got from Marvel. And my theory after hearing that footage was that, that's how the leader plays into it. The leader is a controlling, maybe superpowered being somehow. And because we haven't seen him for a while, it's been a while since the first phase. We've seen the leader. The movie released February 14th, 2025, and I think it sounds interesting. I'm not gonna be overhyped because Marvel. You need to hit this is my favorite from Marvel. They need to hit on all these movies. Captain America 4 has to be good. Thunderbolts has to be good. Fantastic Four has to be great. Deadpool and Wolverine have to be great. And then I think you'll start to get your mojo back. I think that Marvel, in my opinion, Marvel needs to stop making and introducing new characters all at once. I love the new characters we've gotten, but I think you have so many characters that you just need to focus on mainstream characters, and I think Marvel really needs to return to movies. I think TV shows, they've had very hit and miss with their TV shows. But then Marvel ended their presentation talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, and they said it's their first R-rated movie, and they brought Sean Levy out on stage. They said, that really they wanted to make a movie that the fans would want to see. Not just the Marvel fans, but the X-Men fans. And he talked about, we can't show a lot of the movie because a lot of it is spoiler territory, so we kind of have to, pace ourselves. They showed some scenes which sounded absolutely hilarious. They showed a lot of fourth wall breaks. They showed a lot more of Deadpool and Wolverine together. They showed, Deadpool at the TVA. He's looking at the screen and says, "Hey, what's that?" And he sees Thor crying over Deadpool's body, and then a Paradox, who's played by Matthew McFadden in the film, says, "Oh no, that hasn't happened. You're not supposed to be seeing that." And then he runs off camera after he says "I'm Marvel Jesus," and then he runs the camera. He's like, "Fuck you, Fox. I'm going to fucking Disneyland." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, that's what I want." The biggest worry I think people had about Deadpool was it's not going to be Deadpool because it is Disney, and people said no, he's Deadpool, but it's so much more Deadpool than the Fox movies were. I'm like, oh man. And also it was confirmed that Deadpool and Vanessa had broken up in the film, which is very hard to see. And Deadpool's kind of going through a midlife crisis. He doesn't want to be a superhero anymore. He just wants to try to be normal. And then he's dragged into this multiversal story where he teams up with Wolverine and the TVA. And then also another thing that we'll see, they're all at the party, and then I think Blind Al, who's really funny in the film, it's kind of like Deadpool's roommate, says "Hey, I got some cocaine," and Deadpool's like, "No, cocaine is the one thing Foggy said it was off limits." And I'm like, oh my gosh, the fourth wall breaks. This movie, I hope it's a success. I'm so excited to see it. I really thought we were going to get the trailer online for it, a second one, but apparently we're going to have to wait a few more months for that to drop. And that was really it for Marvel. That's all Marvel talked about. Then they wanted to talk about Alien Romulus. And, Fede Alvarez, the director, and producer Ridley Scott kind of sent in a video to talk about the film. And, they showed a bit more scenes. And, as you saw from my reaction to the teaser, this movie looks utterly terrifying. I'm really thinking, do I really want to go see this movie? Because Alien terrifies the living crap out of me. It's probably, the scariest movies I've seen. Even, the last one they did, which wasn't really so great, I was so scared. And Aliens is probably my favorite of the franchise. I've watched that with my parents so many times, and I'm excited to see it, but I'm also very terrified to go see this movie. And then they talked about Yorgos Lanthimos' new film, Kinds of Kindness, which they just re-showed the trailer again, didn't really talk about it, which I'm kind of excited to go see that movie. I think it looks really interesting, coming off his Best Picture nominee for Poor Things and his Best Actress for Emma Stone, who's going to be starring in the film. And then what did they talk about next? I'm trying to figure out what they talked about. And then the last thing they talked about was Mufasa, the Lion King. And they brought the person who directed Moonlight, another Oscar-winning film, will be directing this movie. And Jenkins talked about how Lion King has had such a massive part of his life. When he was growing up, he used to have to take care of his sister's kids, and they would just want to watch The Lion King all day. So he's very much just understands what this movie is. And they showed some footage of it, of Scar and Mufasa in the film, and how really he wanted to get into film because of The Lion King. And so this is one movie that I thought was going to be canceled, but I guess it's happening still, and it comes out December 20th. And then the last thing I think they talked about was Moana 2. They brought off some Polynesian dancers on stage, and then Dwayne Johnson himself, the hype man himself, came out on stage to talk about the film. And he says, like, it takes a few years after the film. He said you could expect, a lot of great musical numbers, and you can expect a very, very great film. And they showed a clip of the movie featuring a new song called We're Back, and it showed like Moana kind of returning from a journey. And this will drop November 27th. And that was it for the Disney panel. So what I can say is that Cinemacon this year, I think, was very interesting. We had a lot of cool things talked about. I think my favorite one was Paramount because of all the Transformers news we got. I love Transformers, all that, and like kind of talking about Gladiator 2 was really cool to see. And then how much Deadpool and Wolverine were present during the Disney panel was really, really great. And of course, Warner Brothers, the big thing was Joker. Joker, I think, has had massive success, like for the second trailer online right now. So that was huge for them as well. And then also for Lionsgate, talking about upcoming films like Borderlands and like kind of teasing the Naruto movie a bit. It got me excited, saying it's going to be a franchise. I'm like, yes, Naruto needs to be a franchise. Naruto, I think, is going to be very, very big, especially with how many anime adaptations we are getting nowadays. That's going to be pretty big. And then I think Universal with Wicked was really cool. They talked about how much, they're trying to make this film for people who don't really like musicals to go and see it. But what are your thoughts? Do you guys enjoy CinemaCon this year, or were you kind of disappointed? Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you next time. Peace!